All right, so Matt, do you want to hear something weird?
Always. That's pretty weird.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. So before we get into it, we'll say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting if you want to get into that. While you're on the internet doing stuff, go support our sponsors. We haven't been getting many lately, so the more you can support the ones we've got, the better it is for us. You know, go over to Undies and get you some Undies. I'm wearing my Undies. So I would love to just support the Undies. Go pick you up some Undies. They support me in the right places, so, you know. But also use any of the other vanity codes that we've got for our sponsors, and it will help us out. Also, go over to patreon.com/Graveyard Tales. Sign up to become a patron. We have multiple levels, and there's a bunch of stuff over there. There's bonus episodes. When we do have an ad, $5 and $10 levels get the ad-free audio and video versions of that. $10 a month, y'all get the all-new side quest show that we're doing. And Matt and I have finally found our groove with side quest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it has become a show that Matt and I try to get each other to laugh or freak each other out or whatever. And it's a long form show. You know, it's not a short episode. It's a long form show. So you're getting around an hour or so of it every week. And there's a lot of visual components to it too, whether we show pictures or videos or whatever. We still plan on having more guests on. We just have to line them up. It's been busy at Matt's house and my house lately with into school and all that, so we just haven't had a chance to book more guests on that show, but we plan on doing that. But patreon.com/Graveyard Tales, sign up, and I guarantee you there's going to be something on there you enjoy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Matt, so that's all I've got for housekeeping, so why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
So tonight, I thought we would go a little bit more old school, where we grabbed a broad topic and covered it in much less of a detail focused and more of the Cliff Notes version, as we've said. But we really dug into this phenomenon, and it's got a connection to the show because Adam has experienced this.
Yep.
Multiple times. We're going to talk about sleep paralysis.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to look at it with a little bit of the paranormal twist. But by the end, we hope that you'll be able to kind of decide, is this a little bit of both? Is this a medical deal? Is it a paranormal deal? Is it just kind of a half and half, you know, which,
right.
You know, seems more likely than anything.
Yeah.
But we're going to let you decide, and we're going to throw a bunch of information at you tonight. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because of all the stuff we've discussed, Matt, this is the thing that I have the most intimate experience with.
Yeah, right.
You know, I've had some paranormal interactions with spirits, not as many as you have. But this, I suffered with this for a while, and which we'll get into toward the end of the episode. Finally found a solution to it, but yeah, we'll talk about that. It's just interesting to me, on a different level, to go through some of this information and research and find out some other stuff about it, and I'm interested in telling all of y'all about it. Now, as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all our information, and you can continue the research, because there is a ton of stuff, again, that Matt and I are not going to be able to cover just for sake of time, and because we're the Cliff Notes version of a lot of this stuff, which we're the long Cliff Note version nowadays, but...
Yeah, that's right.
What is it? Is Spark Notes longer than Cliff Notes? Do we need to change to we're the Spark Notes version now?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, that's another Cliff Notes type deal, but different company.
Oh, I've not heard of them.
Yeah.
Of course, I haven't had to read a book because I had to in a really long time.
Right. And we don't consider reading for the show having to. We read because we want to for the show, but that's why I don't get a chance to read many other books, is because if I pick up a book, it's usually for Graveyard Tales.
Oh yeah.
And I'm doing some research for Graveyard Tales. But anyway, let us know which one's longer, Cliff Notes or Spark Notes. I'm interested now. I haven't ever researched that. But let's look into the medical explanations for sleep paralysis. Because if you talk about it, most people are going to say, well, yeah, but there's a medical explanation for it, and then recite one of these. And I can't discount any of these. You know,
right.
It's not like some other topics that we've done where my jerk butt says, no. I mean, yeah, that could happen, but I can't discount these, except in my case, because it's the only one I have experience with, and I can definitively say none of this applied to me, but I can see how this could apply to a lot of people. So we do need to look at the medical explanations for it. Now, this first part comes from Sleep Foundation. And they said, sleep paralysis, it's a condition that's marked by a brief loss of muscle control known as atonia that happens just after falling asleep or before waking up. In addition to atonia, people often experience hallucinations during episodes of sleep paralysis. So, it's what atonia is, that thing that keeps you from, if you're having a vivid dream, most people aren't flailing their arms and punching at stuff when they're having a vivid dream, because they're in that state of atonia, which keeps your muscles paralyzed despite your brain going crazy.
Right. This is a safety mechanism.
Yeah.
I mean, This prevents people from jumping out of bed to escape a demon or otherwise making moves in a dream that would hurt them in reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, say you're a monkey sleeping in a tree and you're having a dream.
Mm-hmm.
That monkey, if they didn't have the atonia, then they would fall right out of that tree and die. Or like if our ancestors were sleeping up in a tree out in the jungle to avoid predators, and we had a vivid dream, we'd fall out of that tree and die because we were flailing around due to some dream we were having about being chased by predators.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it like Matt said, it keeps us safe at night. Now we just have to worry about, do we get up and go run into a wall or run into the coffee pot or something? But it has an evolutionary advantage. Now, sleep paralysis is considered a parasomnia, And those are abnormal behaviors during sleep. And it because of the fact that it's linked to rapid eye movement or REM stage of the sleep cycle, sleep paralysis is to be considered a REM parasomnia. And standard REM sleep will involve vivid dreaming along with the atonia, but they typically end on waking up. Both of those, the vivid dreams and the muscle paralysis. But a person, they say the reason it does that is so you don't become conscious and then with the inability to move, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's a combination thing. But in this REM parasomnia, one of them kicks off and the other doesn't, is what they're saying.
Yeah. So essentially, the sleeper wakes up from a dream before the paralysis goes away.
Right.
But it's what happens during that period that is so unusual.
Right.
And, medically, they look at it as hallucinations. So you're experiencing hallucinations due to that, that confusion of not just waking up out of a dream, but now being unable to move and being consciously aware of that.
Right.
It's really scary, that combination.
Right.
And that's where a lot of medical professionals, sleep researchers say that's where these stories come from during sleep paralysis episodes.
Right. And like I said, I can't discount any of these, any of the explanations or anything like that, because it legitimately can and does happen. So, like Matt said, it's probably a combination, and we'll get into the combination here in a minute. But as a result of all of this, researchers believe that sleep paralysis involves a mixed state of consciousness that blends both wakefulness and REM sleep. And in effect, the atonia and mental imagery of REM sleep seem to persist even into a state of being aware and awake. So what they're saying is sleep paralysis is your mind coming conscious, but REM sleep still portraying the crazy images to you and you staying paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got like all three of these things happening at once and just totally screwing with you. Now there's different types of sleep paralysis. And the first one is isolated sleep paralysis. And these one-off sleep paralysis episodes are not connected to an underlying diagnosis of narcolepsy, which is a neurological disorder that prevents the brain from properly controlling wakefulness, which often leads to sleep paralysis. But there's also recurrent sleep paralysis, and this condition involves multiple sleep paralysis episodes over time, and recurrent sleep paralysis can be associated with narcolepsy. In many cases, these two defining characteristics are combined to describe a condition called recurrent isolated sleep paralysis, or RISP, R-I-S-P, which involves ongoing instances of sleep paralysis in someone who does not have narcolepsy. Now, you're like, I've never experienced sleep paralysis, so I can't, I can't commiserate with you. I don't know what this feels like. So let's talk about what people say it feels like.
Yeah, because I've never experienced this either. At least if I did, it was so brief that I didn't realize it was happening.
Right. Yeah, and it's one of those things. If you experienced it, you'd frickin' know.
Yeah.
And it's something that sticks with you. You don't forget it. At least in my case, I can't forget the times that it's happened. Now, the defining symptom of sleep paralysis, like I said, is atonia, or the inability to move the body or speak. People also report difficulty breathing, chest pressure, and distressing emotions like panic or helplessness during sleep paralysis episodes. They say it's common to feel excessively sleepy or fatigued the day after experiencing sleep paralysis because you're not getting the right amount of REM sleep that you need. Now, an estimated 75% of sleep paralysis episodes also involve hallucinations that are distinct from typical dreams. They say that these can occur in a hypnagogic hallucinations when falling asleep or hypnopompic hallucinations when waking up. So they can happen. Sleep paralysis can happen while you're trying to fall asleep or while you're trying to wake up is what they're saying. And you can have those hallucinations and stuff. Now, some of the hallucinations that happen during sleep paralysis fall into 3 different categories. They say the intruder hallucinations. These involve the perception of a dangerous person or presence in the room. Chest pressure hallucinations. These are called incubus hallucinations. And these episodes give you the feeling of suffocation or have a sensation that somebody is sitting on your chest. And these often occur along with the intruder hallucinations. So somebody bad is in your room, you feel that, but then you also feel this pressure on your chest like somebody's kneeling on your chest. Which we'll briefly touch on later, but that's where the old hag dreams and old hag explanation comes from.
The old hag.
Yep. I knew her in high school. Anyway, there's also the vestibular motor hallucinations. And these include feeling of movement such as flying or out-of-body sensations. So I can't say that I've never experienced these, but I've never experienced these during one of my sleep paralysis episodes. But this vestibular motor thing can be attributed to, that sensation of falling when you're asleep. I think we've all kind of experienced that, where you jerk awake thinking that you're falling to the floor.
Yeah.
And
now it's happened to me, but it happens to Amanda more frequently. It's when she's first falling asleep. If she's only been asleep for like a few minutes, she'll jerk out of it and be like, "Oh my God," But as you're talking about these, I was thinking last night, just out of the blue, we're looking for something to watch on TV, and Amanda says, "Hey, I heard this show is pretty good." And it's the show Evil. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I've never watched it either, so I said, "Yeah, sure, let's give it a shot." It was ran on CBS. The storyline is that there's a guy that works for the Catholic Church, and he goes around trying to either, prove or disprove demon possession. And so as I'm watching this last night, one of the characters is experiencing sleep paralysis and is being visited by a demon.
Really?
And I was like, man, how freaky that the night before we're going to talk about this. And I've been researching this for, the last few weeks, that I would just out of the blue pick up a show. And the first episode I watch is about sleep paralysis, essentially, or it's a key component of the show.
Yeah. Dude, that is a Graveyard Tale synchronicity.
I know. It's so
that happens
strange
so often.
how this happens.
Like a lot of times what happens to me is we'll record an episode, and then a day or 2 or 3 later, I will see a show about what we talked about. And it's like, okay, weird, but okay.
Makes me wonder if you would normally have seen that and it wouldn't register, except for the fact that you did. But with this, I already knew what was going on. Just the odds that we would have watched this episode of this show.
Right.
At this time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't drawn to it. It just kind of happened. And I was like, really weird. Made me think, am I going to have sleep paralysis tonight?
Yeah, it still could happen.
I did not.
If it happens, report back.
I have sleep. I mean, you know what's weird though is this morning, I did wake up at about 4:30 and I went back to sleep because I had at least another hour I could sleep. But I was dreaming. I can't even remember what, but it was a pretty vivid dream, and I woke up during the dream. And man, that is one of the weirdest feelings.
Yeah.
I think when you're in that deep sleep where you're dreaming and then you wake up, and I wasn't like, nobody woke me up. I just woke up out of that dream, and it was just like the strangest, groggiest.
Oh yeah.
It's like somebody drug you out of quicksand. You're just kind of like, your whole body is just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But that's a terrible feeling.
I've done that a few times, and it's usually like something will scare me in the dream or startle me in the dream, which then shoots me awake. But shortly after that adrenaline from the, oh my God, wears off, then I'm like, oh yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible.
But now, how common is sleep paralysis? Well, it varies, but a lot of people believe that about 20% of people actually experience sleep paralysis at some point in their life. So 20% of us out here have experienced it at least once. Now, they say there's little data among the group about how often the episodes reoccur, though. But sleep paralysis can occur at any age, but first symptoms often show up in childhood, adolescence, or young adult. And it says after starting during teen years, episodes may occur more frequently in a person's 20s and 30s. So
I wonder, especially with childhood and adolescence, if there is a hormonal component to sleep, or you're so much more active, your brain is in the process of development. If that plays into it,
it may, it may.
Because kids. I mean, I've had really bad, vivid dreams that are disturbing when you wake up from them.
Sure. Yeah.
But when the kids have a dream, they're terrified sometimes.
Oh yeah.
To the point of they realize it's a dream. They know they're awake, but they are
Still
shook.
scared. Yep.
So I don't know if that brain development has some aspect that it not necessarily causes it, but could increase the likelihood of it at around those ages. And of course we know how brain development, you're in your mid to late 20s before your frontal lobe is fully developed.
Yep.
So even into your 20s, early 30s, you may still be experiencing that.
Yep. It's true. And that may be some of it that's causing it. I know I don't have any data on, because I said the data is so sparse, and it really is, on experiencers of it actually discussing it, but I don't have any data on whether it happens more to male or female patients, experiencers. But one thing I heard a doctor say, and it brought this up because you mentioned hormones, is that women usually need more sleep because their brain regulates their hormones more than men's do, where men's, it's testicular.
Mm-hmm.
It's glandular in that way. So we need less sleep for those hormones to regulate because our junk works whether we're asleep or not. We need to sleep for other reasons.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if maybe it would happen more to one or the other, depending on the amount of sleep and how the hormones are regulated. I don't know, but it's interesting. I wish we had more data on it.
I know sleep is strange, and we still don't understand everything about it. In fact, when I was in college, I had an anatomy professor who was an MD, not a PhD. And he used to make odd statements. And one of those was, he's like, there's no medical reason for you to sleep other than to not feel tired, which I thought was so bizarre because I'm like, they've done these research studies on sleep deprivation and what it does to the brain. His thought was, but there's no medical reason for you to feel that way. You're tired and fatigued, and that's what happens when you're fatigued. You don't have to be sleep deprived to be overtired and, have a decline in motor function, coordination, reflexes, response time to verbal stimuli, all of that stuff. I thought, dang it, he's right.
Yeah.
But it just seems like there is a physiological reason for sleep. I think it is so varied,
right,
that we just don't understand all of it.
It's so different for each person.
Right.
It's so we can't understand all of it because you can't have a sample set of 10 people who have the exact same sleep needs.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't study it like you can other things with water intake or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's just like my oldest, she's working nights now at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
She's had to completely flip her sleep schedule.
Sure.
And she's been able to do it, but even when she's not working and she's at home, she's up all night.
Mm-hmm.
Because she slept for a large portion of the day.
Sure. Yep. Now, sleep paralysis episodes, they say, can last from a few seconds up to 20 minutes, but the average length is around 6 minutes. I can't imagine having a 20-minute episode of this. Like, I don't know what I would have done if mine lasted 20 minutes. It says in a lot of cases, though, they'll end on their own, but sometimes they're interrupted by, family member, loved one, talking to you, touching you, or by someone's intense effort to move, and that will overpower the atonia. So if you're forcing, like, in your brain, you're thinking, move, you can overpower that at some point and actually start to be able to move. Now, they say the exact cause of sleep paralysis is unknown, but studies have analyzed data to determine what might heighten your risk of sleep paralysis, and it's come back with mixed results. But based on those findings, researchers believe that there are multiple factors that are involved in the onset of sleep paralysis. One of those is sleep disorders. And so sleep disorders and other sleeping problems have shown some of the strongest correlation with isolated sleep paralysis. Higher rates of sleep paralysis, 38% in one study, are reported by people with obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA, which is a sleep disorder marked by repeated lapses in breathing. Sleep paralysis also has been found to be more common in people with chronic insomnia, circadian rhythm dysregulation, and nighttime leg cramps. So I can say, just in touching on what I'll talk about, none of those apply to me.
Yeah.
I don't have any of those sleep disorders.
Wonder if restless leg syndrome is grouped into this as well. Have you ever had that?
No, but my dad has it.
Oh my God. Listen, for years and years and years, I meet patients that take medication for restless leg. They tell me how bad it is, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, it sounds terrible. Until you have it, and then you realize how terrible it really is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is one of the strangest feelings I have ever experienced. It is like electric shocks.
Yeah.
Like going down both legs. Mine, it's like even affects my back. And there's no way to get comfortable. There's no way to make it stop. There's no way to just fight through it. The only thing you can do is get up and move.
Yeah.
I mean, you get up and you move around and everything. And as soon as you touch the floor and start moving, it's better.
Mm-hmm.
But then you lay back down and it creeps right back. So I just start taking magnesium at night.
Yeah.
And that helps it tremendously.
My dad,
there are other medications, there are prescriptions for it, but I want to group that in there because I could certainly see how that interrupts the ability to go to sleep or to stay asleep being an aspect of this, because I mean, you feel like I'm tired. I'm falling asleep. Or at least I'm trying to. I'm in that kind of halfway between, and then all of a sudden your body is going zzz, and you're just like, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And if you're in that in between, it could be mistaken as somebody's touching me, somebody's pulling on my legs, somebody has hooked me up to electrodes, until you become aware enough to say, oh, no, this is restless leg, and I just need to get up and move and stuff like that.
Yeah, my dad said what helped him a lot was helichrysum oil. He would use helichrysum oil on the back of his knees. And something about whatever is in that helichrysum helped kind of deaden the nerves that cause that. So
what's in that? A lot of chrism.
Yeah.
Helichrysum.
Hella amounts of it. But apparently he's not one into the oils, like the herbalism oils and stuff like that, but he had somebody tell him to try that, and he tried it, and it worked. So just as a PSA for anybody out there like Matt who has it, try helichrysum oil, and maybe that'll help without having to do a prescription.
Yeah.
I don't know. It helped Dad, but now narcolepsy is another one that can cause it. And it says a pattern of multiple instances of sleep paralysis over a period of time may be connected with narcolepsy. And it says that narcolepsy can alter the function of neurotransmitters in the brain, which may cause complications during REM sleep, including sleep paralysis. And it says while roughly 20% of the general population experience infrequent bouts of sleep paralysis, episodes are generally more frequent in those with narcolepsy, which I could see that. Again, I can see how that sleep disorder might cause another oddity in your sleep pattern. But it says also mental health disorders could cause it. It says certain mental health conditions have shown connection to sleep paralysis. Some of the strongest associations are people with PTS, post-traumatic stress, and others who have been exposed to physical and emotional distress. Those with anxiety disorders, including panic disorder, also appear to be more likely to experience the condition. So, yeah, makes sense. If you're in a heightened state of stress or panic, then that'll mess with your brain function. It says dream patterns as well that some studies have found that people who show traits of imaginativeness and disassociation from their immediate environment, such as daydreaming, are more likely to experience sleep paralysis. There may be a link as well between sleep paralysis and vivid nightmares or lucid dreaming. Further research is necessary to investigate the correlations and better understand the numerous potential causes of sleep paralysis, it says. But those are some of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mentioned the old hag thing. Well, in Newfoundland, that's where the sleep paralysis is called the old hag syndrome, because they feel like it's an old hag or a crone that's kneeling on your chest during sleep. Just threw that in to the notes there because it seemed to fit. I should have thrown it in a little earlier, but, you know, whatever. Sue me. Now, from the National Library of Medicine, they say Ferreira and Hossain and Valère define the pisadera as a crone with long fingernails who lurks on roofs at night in order to trample on the chest of those who sleep. So now, Luis da Camara Cascudo, who is a renowned folklorist born in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Norte, adds further details to this physical description by mentioning that Pisadera's gauntness and unkempt hair is another aspect that people see, and he states that the Pisadera is a nightmare personified in an old man or woman, and the nightmare, or the Roman nocturna oppressio, has always been explained by the evil intervention of an incubus and a demon or a malevolent spirit. And in many cultures, the nightmare, also known as the classic onirodynia, was due to a giant or a dwarf, a terrible woman or man, that, taking advantage that one is sleeping, would sit upon their stomach and pressure their thorax, disturbing one's breathing. So it's, you know, we talked about the medical explanations. Well, we're kind of getting into the folklore part of it now. And what I find interesting, we can look at it in the different examples. Everybody has a similar outtake on what this is. So
Right.
My one thing that I'll throw in before we go further into this is, if this is, and this ties into my mass hallucination thing, if this is simply just a medical disorder that is causing you to have a REM sleep issue, why do so many cultures and so many different people have similar descriptions of what this thing is? Because if it's all being generated in your brain, wouldn't we generate different things? And I'll also throw in there, I didn't witness this stuff. Mine was different than this.
Mm-hmm.
But so many cultures have the same experience. There's a crone, there's a hag, there's a demon on your chest. And they usually look gaunt, straggly hair, you know, old hag. Think of that. So why would so many different cultures have the same thing if it were all in the individual's brain?
I know it's a tough one to wrap your head around. You would expect the experiences to be all across the board.
Right, exactly.
In fact, you would almost expect someone to have a positive sleep paralysis experience.
Yeah.
We don't hear those.
No. Positive, you'd think
it's
maybe.
typically
Maybe they're into that kind of thing. That's their kink.
But it's typically frightening, bordering on terrifying.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, you just don't say, "Oh, I felt so at peace," and all. I read tons of these stories, and I never found one.
No. Nobody said, "I really enjoyed being tied down by this this succubus and having fun with it and all that." It didn't happen. It was, like you said, it's always negative, and it's always described as the same. But a lot of these next ones come from frontiers in psychology. So let's look at what sleep paralysis in different cultures looks like. So in the countryside of the Brazilian states of Minas Gerais and Sao Paulo, the pesadilla, like I mentioned, possesses different physical features. Sometimes she is a fat and heavy Afro-Brazilian who is adept at stepping on the abdomen of those who sleep on a full stomach or sleep belly up. So they've got the skinny hag that I mentioned a second ago, or they've got this heavy Afro-Brazilian person who comes and steps on your chest or belly. And usually they say this happens if you sleep on your back or with a full stomach. I don't know.
Now, see, that seems so specific.
That
if this is the accepted experience, I mean,
right.
Multiple people have reported this situation.
Right.
Which just doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, exactly. And in my experience, it's happened when I was on my back or my side. Now, I'm not in Sao Paulo, so maybe it's different, but sleep position didn't matter in my case. Now, the first known description of sleep paralysis comes from Hippocrates, and the Greeks named it ephialtes, which roughly translates as, quote, to pounce upon someone. Now, Artemidorus of Daldis, the 2nd century, in his book, can't pronounce it, but it's translated to the interpretation of dreams. He associated ephialtes with the god Pan, who was the horned god of the woods, and flocks could have sex with the dreamer during an ephialtes, and such was viewed as a promise of great future income.
Well, here's your positive experience.
Well, positive outcome.
True.
But not necessarily a positive experience during the thing.
Yeah, you're like, this sucks, but
right.
It's going to turn out for the better.
It'll turn out good. I've got great future income coming. And that just sounds bad. That sounds like Pan's paying you off for this.
That's right. You're the prostitute for a half goat, half man. Adam, for most of the year, fancy underwear technology sounds unnecessary.
Right.
This is breathable, quick dry, moisture wicking, anti-odor. It's all just overkill, especially for guys. But then summer hits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly steaming beads of sweat are forming pools in places that they shouldn't.
Right.
Suddenly breathable, quick dry, moisture wicking, and anti-odor, they sound pretty essential,
Yeah.
And summer's coming fast, so you need to be prepared like Adam and me with MeUndies. MeUndies got something for every guy this summer. The micromodal fabric is breathable and comfortable, especially the ball caddy, which Adam loves.
Yep.
I prefer to go sans ball caddy. But it helps you avoid what they call bat winging.
Yeah.
Which I can honestly say I don't think I've ever done.
I haven't full on bat winged. It feels like it. If you don't know what bat winging is, that's when things get so hot and sticky that your giblets stick to your thighs. And giblets sticking to your thighs is not comfortable. Like Matt said, the ball caddy that I use is fantastic because it does keep everything separated. And I was honestly shocked, Matt. I don't know about your experience, but I was shocked with this micromodal fabric because they say, oh, super stretchy, it's cool, and it won't ride. And I'm like, sure. I tried it. Dude, it doesn't ride up the leg. The leg stays where you put it. And it really does feel like there's nothing there except you're not sticking, you know?
And I wear the longer, like the 9-inch inseam, okay? I like mine long. I like my thighs covered when I'm wearing pants in the summertime.
Right.
And the biggest problem you run into is by the end of the day, you've got this, pile of material that has crept up your leg.
Yep.
MeUndies does not do that.
I know, it's amazing. And guys don't honestly think about comfortable underwear. Most guys that you talk to, they're like, I got them at the big box store. They're white. They're good. They got to fly. And you're like, okay, yeah, I was there too. I didn't really care for a long time about my underwear, but it really makes a difference when you get good underwear. Now, the thing is, our ladies always have thought about good underwear. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a lady, so I don't know why they were all on board with good underwear. But Ashley tried these MeUndies, and she tried a couple pair to see if she liked it. And then she's like, okay, and placed this big order because she loves them. She's like, they're so soft. The waistband doesn't cut into you like other ones do. She's in love with them too. So me, Ashley, and Michael all have MeUndies.
Yeah, Brooks loves them. He told me yesterday he wants to change all of his underwear to these.
That's what I'm working on.
Amanda got a bra.
Oh, yeah?
And she loves it. Loves it. And she is very particular about her bras. So for her to put this on the first time and go, I am in love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really saying something.
Right. And they've got a style for everybody. So, their thing is MeUndies has a cut for every guy's butt. And it's true. They've got a style. If you're more into the brief style, they've got briefs. They've got boxer briefs. They've got boxer briefs with the ball caddy. They've got shorter trunks. They got everything. And it's the same for ladies. They've got tons of lady styles and, over 100 different colors and prints, ranging from your standard black to dinosaurs to I have on sea turtles today. I'm wearing sea turtles. So, between the prints and stuff, it's unmatched comfort. That micromodal fabric we talked about, it's breathable, stretchy, it's comfortable, and it's ideal for all day wear. And it's anti-odor technology. So if you're working outdoors sweating, or you're just a sweaty, stinky human like a lot of people are, it's really helpful. And they've got a problem-free philosophy. If you're not happy with your first pair of MeUndies, guess what? It's on MeUndies. Now, you can't go to a big box store and get that and go, hey, I'm not happy with these. If you put on underwear, that's your underwear now.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter. Except with MeUndies, they will pay for that first pair if you're not happy. So like we said, summer is coming. Be prepared with MeUndies. You can get 20% off your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/graveyard. GRAVEYARD.
That's right. So if you want to wear neon hearts like I've got on today,
absolutely,
go to MeUndies.com/graveyard for 20% off plus free shipping. MeUndies. Comfort from the outside in.
Now, this positive link with it, so you would get, future great income. That eventually changed with the arrival of the Christian era in the Middle Ages. And that's when the incubi and the succubi, who we've talked about before, which are demons who sexually harass the victims at night, would emerge at that point. So the Latin name for incubus would initially be a direct translation of Ephialtes. However, it quickly acquired sexual connotations given its proximity to concumber, which means to sleep with, and concubinus, or concubine. So, like I said, we've done an episode on these before. If you're interested, go back. If you're like, I missed the incubus, succubus episodes, go back, give it a listen. They're in somewhere in Graveyard Tales deep antiquity. I don't know.
They're a few years old.
They're somewhere back there. Now, the Inuit people of Alaska and Canada and stuff, they refer to sleep paralysis as Ukumanagirnik, which is an experience closely linked to the spiritual world, and it courses with compromised motor function, so inability to move, talk, scream, whatever, hallucinations, and the frightening manifestations of a shapeless or faceless presence. Now, the Inuit believe that the shamans are who's mainly responsible for the sleep paralysis. It says, although the shamans exert a benign influence by organizing activities ranging from rites of passage to the interpretations of dreams, some shamans involved in power disputes will cast a spell on their opponents. One of these spells consists of attacking the enemy as they sleep. It says since at this moment the connection between body and soul is fragile. Now, if a shaman can permanently separate the soul from its body, that individual then dies. So the Inuit associate it with a shamanistic rite, where dude's trying to separate your body from soul to kill you. So it's pretty dark there.
Yeah. But doesn't this sound like skinwalker kind of stuff too?
It kind of does, yeah.
I mean, we are talking about Native Americans here, so I mean, we're walking a fine line here. When we're talking about separating somebody's body from their soul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's essentially what skinwalkers do. Or not. Okay. The practitioners of the dark magic, for lack of a better term, that are becoming a skinwalker.
Right. So another dark one that we need to talk about is Cambodian refugees. Now, this says that through interviews with 100 Cambodian refugees in an American psychiatric clinic in the Hinton, and it says 2005 or so, observed a high incidence of sleep paralysis among survivors of the Pol Pot dictatorial regime, which was 1975 to 1979. 42% of the subjects reported at least one sleep paralysis episode per year. These patients referred to sleep paralysis as Kamok Sengkat, the ghost that pushes you down. While among them, a supernatural being or a ghost would put their hands on their chest or neck of the victim while the victim was sleeping in a supine position, making it difficult to breathe. Now, there are 4 ways the supernatural beings could look. So one is a tall black shadow lacking a defined outline, or a red-eyed, canine-toothed being dressed in a Khmer Rouge cloak who brandishes a knife or a club. 3 is a simian-like demon. And 4 is an app, which is a grotesque creature embodied solely by the head of a woman and her bowels.
And we've discussed that before.
Mm-hmm. Now, regarding ghosts, it says, when someone is killed violently or buried without the proper funeral rites, something that was recurrent during the Pol Pot period, the spirit would be doomed to walk the earth and haunt the living by showing them the afterlife state of penury. So they're associating it with spirits left on the earth. But it also ties into the PTS medical explanation that we talked about, because they lived through the Pol Pot regime and had to deal with the Khmer Rouge, and one of the things they see is a Khmer Rouge soldier.
Yeah, that's what I was going to hit on. That's extraordinarily specific.
Mm-hmm.
For and for that to be such a horrific period in Cambodian history, it just leaves a mark in somebody's subconscious.
Sure.
And that emerges, which begins to make you think maybe your brain does manifest the appearance of this.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at these different cultures. It's something much more cultural that they experience, even if the process is the same.
Right.
what you witness is different and much more terrifying to you based on your culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, in Thailand, the Thiam is a ghost that haunts subjects when half asleep and unable to move. So they have one as well, considered a ghost. Now, the Egyptians believe that sleep paralysis is caused by the jinn, who we did a whole episode on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ethiopians consider the dukak an evil spirit that haunts the sleep, similar to the Brazilian Pisadera. The Hmong people, which is an ethnic group from the mountainous regions of Vietnam and Laos, they believe that a pressing spirit sits on the chest of the sleepers and tries to asphyxiate them. So they all seem to have similar explanations for it and similar descriptions of it, which I there again say, how is that possible if it's all in the person's mind?
Right. And we look at things like Scandinavian folklore, where sleep paralysis is says to be caused by a mare, which is a female evil spirit thought to lie upon and suffocate sleepers. And according to this folklore, the spirit visits her victims in the night, taking the form of sand so that she can sneak into their house through keyholes or cracks in the wall. The spirit then transforms into a young woman who proceeds to terrorize her victim by sitting on their chest and smothering them. Now, these episodes were so terrifying that we still talk about mares today, which is where we get the term nightmare.
Right.
That was the old English word mare. That was the first to coin the terms related to sleep paralysis, and now it's become a catch-all term for bad dreams.
Right. So it sounds like it happens more frequently than the 20%, maybe.
It sure does. Worldwide, it absolutely does.
Yep.
Now, in Mexico, the Cebersa en Muerte, which roughly translates as a dead body climbed on top of me.
Nice. Nice.
But it's a common expression used to describe the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, And a study conducted in 2009 found that more than 90% of Mexican adolescents were familiar with the term, which originates from Mexican folklore, while more than 25% had experienced sleep paralysis themselves. So, if just 25% of Mexican adolescents say they've had a sleep paralysis experience, that goes to that number going up.
Right. Because that's just one cultural group having over what the worldwide percentage is supposed to be.
Yeah. Now, in Spain, specifically in the Catalonia region, the Pisanta is a monster that takes the form of an enormous black dog with paws made of steel. Yikes. Legend says that the Pisanta lives in the abandoned churches or ruins of Catalonia, only coming out at night to terrorize people in their homes while they sleep. Often people will wake up to the Pisanta sitting on their chest, suffocating them. And when confronted, the monster escapes so fast you can only see its shadow. Again, they all have these same kind of these similarities. In China and the Far East, episodes of sleep paralysis are known as ghost oppression, which stems from the ancient Chinese belief that an individual's soul is vulnerable to evil spirits while they sleep. Now, the first record of ghost oppression can be found in the earliest Chinese dictionary, dating back to the Eastern Han Dynasty around AD 30 to AD 124. Wow. So, theoretically, this is not a new phenomenon. It's not something that's even just been studied or addressed. It's been around for centuries.
Yep, they had it, and then the Greeks talked about it. Hippocrates' time, so it's been around a long time.
Now, in Japan, the kanashibari is the term for sleep paralysis, and it literally means bound with metal. So, Adam, I think you had something like, bound with chains or something along those lines. Yeah. The most common form of kanashibari comes from possession. When a person is possessed by an inugami, a kitsune, or a tanuki, or any other kind of invading spirits, mostly animal spirits, one of the possible symptoms they can develop is immobility or sleep paralysis. And this kind of possession could sometimes be overcome if a shujingja, which is a kind of priest, recites Buddhist sutras to drive out the possessing animal spirit. And once the spirit is driven out, the kanashibari would disappear and everything would be okay.
So if it were medical, I don't think that would happen.
Exactly. Now, this one is really kind of dark. The interpretation in St. Lucia is that sleep paralysis is caused by the spirits or ghosts of dead children who would try to strangle you while you slept. Known as kokma, urban legends suggest that such spirits are the souls of unbaptized or stillborn children.
Well, you know me and ghost children.
I knew it. I was like, this will be the one that gets at them.
I'm so glad I'm not in St. Lucia right now, because good grief. It would be bad enough to see a ghost kid while I'm awake and investigating someplace. But to be laying in bed trying to sleep and have a ghost kid trying to kill me? Nah. No, thank you.
Well, I just find it interesting how so much of this is tied to folklore, that's cultural, but
Mm-hmm.
yet, the outcomes are very similar. The descriptions of the events are similar. The thing that's causing them may be different.
Yeah.
But the effective is you're saying something visits me in my sleep and I can't move, and it is trying to do something physical to me, whether it's stepping on me or suffocating me or strangling me. There's something that is taking away my breath, taking away my life force
Right.
across the board. And we've talked about a dozen different cultures that all have their own terminology, their own folklore, their own experiences associated with sleep paralysis.
But they all are so similar.
Yeah. Yeah. They have that underlying commonality. Now, I read a bunch of these, a bunch of them.
I bet.
But, in effort to try to keep this from just being a show where we just told you a whole bunch of personal experience stories, I picked out 3 that I thought were fairly unique, and they each had some different aspects that we've discussed tonight. Okay. So this first one is from Tanya Kundu, and she wrote about her experiences with sleep paralysis for idiva.com. And she says, this one night, I had my hand dangling on one side of the bed as I rested peacefully, but I suddenly felt another hand on top of it. Naturally, I wanted to withdraw, but couldn't. Once I got control over my body again, it was heated up, terrified, and I didn't want to go to sleep because what if it happened again?
Sure.
These few seconds or minutes of helplessness are broadly what sleep paralysis feels like. The episode I just mentioned, however, was the least petrifying of my experiences. The first was the worst of all because I had no idea what in the universe was happening. I was in bed in my hostel dorm, and just as I was about to fall asleep, I felt as if I was being sucked in. While something pulled me towards the bottom, I also felt a huge weight on top of me. I tried calling out for my friend whose bed was next to me, but I couldn't. Meanwhile, my eyes were wide open and I could see the back of the blanket on my face. I didn't want to live life guessing what or who it was trying to crush me, so I desperately tried to remove the blanket to find out. I failed. I was completely jammed. So, again, the crushing, she didn't necessarily see what was doing it, but she definitely experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, we're seeing that there's something sitting on me, a weight pushing me down, that pressing ghost,
right,
that we discussed. Now, this next one comes from a Reddit user that goes by the handle Jelly Bean Skittle.
That sounds tasty.
He got a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
So Jelly Bean Skittle writes, I suffered a terrible accident involving being kicked in the face by a horse. Ow.
Mm-hmm.
This resulted in my jaw being broken. 2 plates and a wired jaw later, I was pretty hangry and exhausted.
Yep.
I'd suffered from sleep paralysis before, but nothing to the extent after this accident. It occurred every night, sometimes multiple times, for months on end. We have a mirrored wardrobe next to our bed, my side, of course, and I kept the bedroom door open. Quite often, I would just be falling off to sleep when I would feel the dread wash over me, followed by the feeling of someone being in the room. I would then feel like something was pulling me off the bed, by my arm towards the mirror. Then the nightmares progressed to being dragged off the bed by my back, all whilst feeling choked, unable to scream or move, and unable to get my husband's attention, who lay next to me. Extremely unnerving and upsetting to the point I would fear sleep. My husband told me that I'd been sleepwalking and I had no recollection of this. He found me in the hallway a few times. That's really upsetting.
I believe it.
After a post on Reddit, it was suggested that we cover the mirror. It did help curb the amount of experiences for a while until I returned to work, where the nightmares lessened. Recently, the sleep paralysis has returned, but interestingly, so have my daily headaches and migraines. I'm able sometimes to let out a sound while trying to scream, which my husband then is able to wake me out of it. My most recent experience has been of a black figure. Think of a person covered head to toe in the skin-tight black lycra, who is trying to drag me from bed by my face.
Oh, wow.
Incredibly frightening. In this state, it feels like it is almost in slow motion, and I'm trying to crawl my fingers across the bed to my husband to wake him up, but it's impossible.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah. But this touches on some other things, that feeling of there is someone in the room with you, that I'm being attacked. You know, even though I'm being pulled out of bed, something is choking me.
Right.
But as you mentioned earlier, Adam, you know, if someone interrupts this, if a person comes in or if they wake you up or they just interfere with it in whatever, then you can move and you're out of it.
Right. Right.
Which it was interesting though when you would have your experiences. You know, at the time you were living alone.
Yep.
You know, so there was nobody there for you to go poke you or elbow you and go, hey, wake up. You're having a nightmare or something.
Right.
You know, but I mean, I would show up and Adam would be like, man, let me tell you about what happened last night.
Yeah.
It's like, God, dog. So this last one I've got, it was posted on Reddit, but the user's name was only listed as a former Redditor. But you'll see why I couldn't pass on this one.
Okay. It
says, I almost only have them when I sleep on my back during the night. So the most terrifying time was when I slept on my chest during the daylight hours on my couch in my living room. I thought that it was a coward that only came in the dark of the night, but it came to prove me wrong. Every single incident was at night except this one. My wife and I were arguing on the way home from church, and she took the kids to her mother's for the day so we could both calm down. I chose to take a nap, laying on my chest with my head turned to the left, away from the sunlight from my living room windows. I awoke around 2 p.m., unable to move. Only this time, I felt that my right leg was slightly elevated. Each of my experiences beforehand were different in that I was being held down and choked by a dark silhouette. I would try to yell, but nothing would come out. I would panic and begin to pray, and then it would let me go and leave. This time, though, it dragged me off the couch and was yanking me violently with my face down in broad daylight where I could not see it. I truly thought this thing was finally going to kill me. I'm a 33-year-old man in good health who isn't scared easily, but in that moment, I thought I would never see my children again. I prayed that God would protect me, and he did. A veil of darkness lifted from the room. From where I was on the floor, I could see the sunlight from the window shift forward several inches. there was a handprint on my ankle from where it grabbed me and dragged me. It had 5 fingers like the hands of a man. I had a large terrier mix at the time, and he was clawing at the back door and growling like I had never heard him do before. I let him in the house, and he was snarling and baring his teeth, running from room to room, chasing something that I could not see, but heard heavy footsteps on my wooden floor. I watched my dog chase after this thing to the corner of my yard, and it wasn't until he came back that I realized my dog almost clawed halfway through a 2-inch thick wooden door trying to get in to protect me.
Oh, wow.
I blessed my home with oil that same day, and I haven't had trouble since. That was in 2012. My dog is passed, and he says a year later of old age, but I got my girls a Rhodesian Ridgeback named Jax, and he sleeps in their room every night. I'd rather he be there with them if this thing ever returns.
No joke.
Yeah.
That's
So,
wild.
This almost sounds like this has gone from a sleep paralysis episode to a full-on paranormal attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, with
for sure.
with physical evidence of having been attacked.
Mm-hmm. And with the dog reacting to it.
Yeah.
Which that makes me want to jump in with my experience before you finish out, just because the dog thing ties in.
Mm-hmm.
Now I had multiple, but I'll tell you about 2, because the first one is it's basically what most of them were. And then my second one was the last one I had before I was able to get them to stop. So what normally would occur is, didn't matter whether I was sleeping on my back or my side, but I would wake up and I would know I would be awake, because you know how when your eyes pop open and you're awake and you're just laying there for a little bit and you're like, I don't want to move, but I might have to pee. I don't know. And then I would get this feeling like something was in the hallway of my house. And you know the way my old house was set up, my bedroom, I could see partially down the hallway from my bed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did that on purpose. That was that was a defense thing. I want to be able to see down the hallway. Well, anyway, I was going to sit up and try to figure out what was in my hallway. And that's when I realized I couldn't move. I'm stuck in this position, but I can move my eyes. So I'm able to cut my eyes and look down the hallway, and there is a large black figure, darker than the dark of the hallway, like a super dark shadow, that's slowly moving to my room. Like it's in slow motion moving toward my room. And I can see it getting bigger, and it's coming. And I'm trying to, break out of this sleep paralysis thing, and I can't. Well, all of a sudden it gets to the room, and I feel a puff of wind come through the room. It disappears, and then I'm able to move again. That's the common one that would happen most of the time. Now, the one that happened to be the last one is the weirdest one to me. I'm laying kind of on my side, and I wake up again, and I kind of glanced down, and I thought Dallas was laying on the edge of the bed between my hips and the edge of the bed. So like toward the front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I felt a weight behind me, and I realized that was Dallas behind me. But there is a white shape laying on the edge of my bed. So I tried to move, couldn't, tried to say something, couldn't. And I watched this white mass move, slide down to the floor. The weight comes off the bed. The impression comes off the bed. So there was weight on the bed. It gets to the floor and it starts to head out of my door instead of in my door. Well, it starts to head out and it morphs into a white cat. Right as it's getting out of the door, Dallas bolts up in the bed, stands up in the bed, and goes "Oh!" at the door, and is just frozen, staring at the door. He's got his hackles up all down his back, and he's sitting there doing that beagle thing when they're trying to protect something or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beagle. They're not that scary, but they try to be. But as soon as this white cat walked out of the room and Dallas barked at it, then I was able to move again. So shortly after that, we were talking about it on an episode, and a listener who runs a crystal shop online sent me and you both black tourmaline.
Mm-hmm.
So I was skeptical. I'm still slightly skeptical of crystals and stuff like that, but I did it anyway. I said, I got nothing to lose now. This is crazy. I can't believe this is happening to me. I'll try anything. So I went through the procedure of what you're supposed to do with black tourmaline to get it used to you and all that, and then kept it beside the bed. Never again have I had sleep paralysis. I keep that beside my bed at all times. I wear one. I've got one on my desk in front of me because I'm not taking any chances. But big old piece on my desk right here. One around my neck. And ever since I got the black tourmaline, I have not had an episode of sleep paralysis. But I had to throw that in there because the guy's dog in the last one noticed something. Dallas knew something was up.
Yeah.
And he barked at whatever this was. And I have tried to find any other sleep paralysis episode that had a white figure and a white cat involved in it. Never been able to figure it out. Never been able to find another person that has said they experienced a white mass and a white cat.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was.
And I remember you telling me about this, before we talked about it on the show. It was really weird. And I could tell that you were disturbed by it for sure.
Oh, I was pretty effed up. Yeah.
I mean, we had enough odd things that occurred in that house when we were recording the show.
Yeah.
But I think what's so fascinating from all that was the fact that the black tourmaline stopped it essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Or it at least it didn't occur again once you got it.
Right.
And I've still got that same piece.
Yeah.
It sits on my nightstand. It has sat on my nightstand since we got it. Because we used to see shadow figures here.
Right.
And ever since I got that, we don't see them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it is pretty interesting. It would make me recommend this to anyone who's ever experienced sleep paralysis. I'm like, give it a shot. I mean, this stuff is not super expensive.
No.
I think I ordered a pound of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like maybe $12, in pieces.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I did for my necklace.
Yeah.
Was ordered several pieces, made one for me, Ashley, and Michael.
So when I meet people that tell me stories like this, I offer them a piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, believe it, don't believe it, it doesn't matter. Just give it a try and see if it's better.
Right.
And I tell them your story because it worked for you.
Yeah. And Could it be psychosomatic? Sure.
Yeah.
But even if it is,
Yeah, it works.
yeah, it works. I haven't had a sleep paralysis episode since. I haven't had any, quote, night visitors like that since I started wearing it and sleeping with one beside the bed.
Yeah.
I don't take this thing off to go to sleep. As annoying as it was in the beginning, I sleep with it on. So
I did for a long time. I have a really little one
mm-hmm.
that I wore for a long time. My necklace broken. I never did fix it, but that one, that bigger piece is always right there beside me when I sleep.
Yep.
Now, not all sleep paralysis stories have demons or shadow figures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? In 1998, Dr. Susan Blackmore published a study on the correlation between people claiming to have been abducted by aliens and sleep paralysis. Now, Dr. Blackmore has a PhD in parapsychology, but now states that after 30 years of meeting failed psychics and alien abductees, that she has become a skeptic. But nonetheless, she published this study over 25 years ago, back when people were not talking about sleep paralysis, at least not in the U.S.
Right.
Researchers have pointed out the similarities between abductions and sleep paralysis. And the majority of the abduction experience they studied occurred at night, and almost 60% of the intense reports were sleep-related. Of the intense experiences, nearly a quarter of them involve symptoms similar to sleep paralysis. So, Dr. Blackmore says, imagine the following scenario. A woman wakes in the night with a strong sense that someone or something is in the room. She tries to move and finds that she's completely paralyzed except for her eyes. She sees strange lights, hears a buzzing or humming sound, and feels a vibration in the bed. If she knows about sleep paralysis, she will recognize it instantly, but most people do not. So what is she going to think? Dr. Blackmore suggests that if she has watched TV programs about abductions or read about them, she may begin to think of aliens. And in this borderline sleep state, the imagined alien will seem extremely real. This alone may be enough to create the conviction of having been abducted. And hypnosis could make the memories of this experience, of this real experience, but not real abduction, completely convincing. So, Dr. Blackmore, she is an interesting character. Okay. Yeah. She has studied psychology, parapsychology. She is, she's like, I think she's in her 70s, and she's got red and blue and purple hair, she doesn't look like what you expect. For sure. But you can tell she's done a lot of research into this. And I don't believe that she is saying that all alien abduction stories are related to sleep paralysis, because Lord knows we have talked about plenty that did not occur when anyone was in bed or even at home.
Right.
Right. I mean, how many of these, when we look at the Betty
Hills.
And Barney Hill and Travis Walton, these people were not asleep. But we do hear a lot of people being in the bed and having this sensation of being levitated out of bed, even out the window to a spaceship, having all these tests done on them. My problem with this is that a lot of these abduction stories, they seem, at least to the experiencer, that they are occurring over several hours.
Right. And
most sleep paralysis episodes are short.
Yeah.
20 minutes or less, which it's like 20 minutes. That's probably a really long episode.
Yeah.
Most of them probably last less than a minute.
Yeah, probably.
So it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that these abduction stories would all be related to sleep paralysis. I could see where some of them for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You hallucinate this. And she even goes on to say, okay, so the old hag, the black dog, the possession by an animal spirit. What if alien abduction is the U.S.'s modern sleep paralysis demon? We've talked about all these cultures that have very specific stories. What if the alien abduction is ours here in America?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's an interesting point. And again, I think it fits for probably a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But all sleep paralysis stories here in the U.S. do not involve aliens.
Right.
So it's not gonna account for all sleep paralysis stories. And all alien abduction stories don't include sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a very specific sample of people, you may have hit on something.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
it's only gonna be true for those people.
Right. A small group.
But one thing I think about sleep paralysis that I didn't really see in the research is you mentioned it, that hypnagogic state.
Mm-hmm.
That whole idea that, when you're asleep, you're at a different level of consciousness. And what do we know about out of body experiences or people that perform transcendental meditation? These monks that have dedicated their life to this study of meditation and what's the word I'm looking for? Enlightenment.
There you go.
Okay.
You're looking for enlightenment, Matt.
I'm looking for enlightenment to talk about enlightenment. They all involve, at some level, achieving a different state of consciousness.
Right.
So what if that in between, that period of REM sleep to wakefulness, if you can wake up during that time, then you have achieved awareness of that altered state of consciousness. And your experiences may or may not be physical in nature, but what if you've tapped into something else?
Right.
What if you're highly sensitive to this? What if you could go through a process of training and focus where you could achieve this without going to sleep? Then perhaps you could get to that point where you are not paralyzed. It's just a thought, but with all the terms people use for the medical condition of it, it just makes sense that we talk about this in so many other things. You just don't seem to see the correlation of the medical condition of sleep paralysis to these other aspects of meditation or an out of body experience, anything like that.
Right.
Because when we did the show on out of body experiences, everyone just says, I'm in that period where I'm asleep, but I'm not really asleep. And I can feel my spirit lifting up
Right.
out of myself.
Right.
You get that snap back at the end. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what if you're that sleep paralysis is you waking up without the out of body?
Yeah.
You don't leave. You're kind of stuck. You haven't found that ability to completely separate yet.
Yep. Maybe.
I mean, we discussed a story where a shaman might come in and try to separate the body from the soul.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes you think maybe it could be done.
Yep.
And maybe you're on the cusp of it, but you're not there. And you're having a negative experience because you need to be able to come on out of that.
Yep.
To where there is your paralyzed body, but your spirit is free to roam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just, I really think that doing this research gave me a lot more questions than it gave me answers.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. Same for me. Even being an experiencer, I came away with more questions about it than I did answers about it, which kind of sucks, but you know, that happens a lot with paranormal stuff and the weird stuff that we look up and research, is you usually don't figure anything out. You just get a slight understanding, but then have more questions about other things.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely food for thought.
Yep.
So what do you guys think? We've thrown a lot of different information at you. Maybe some of you have experienced sleep paralysis. In fact, I know we have listeners that have, because they've shared those stories in our Facebook group. And that's the best place to do it. If you've got an experience, if you've got an opinion on sleep paralysis or what's going on, let us know. And our Facebook group is one of the best places to do it. It's private, it's safe, and nobody is going to call you a nut job or a loony. Okay, we all just want to hear these great experiences. Don't forget to check out our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. There you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, and you can become a patron, and it is a great time to jump in there and support the show, but at the same get all of this new content that you haven't had access to before. You know, all the bonus episodes, the bonus videos, the ad frees. And for our $10 folks, our brand new show, Side Quest, which, as Adam has said, we feel like we're hitting our stride with that, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. So join us there and see what we've been talking about.
Yep.
Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.